What is the future of work? Hey, I'm John Harris, and welcome to another episode of Exponential Radio. And this is a question that comes up a lot. Parents are worried, perhaps more than the youth themselves. If you look at businesses and the progression that's taken place very rapidly over the last few years, where you had entrepreneurs with employees, perhaps 10, 20 small businesses, and then those over the last few decades, or quite a while, let's say even longer than that, the last 100 years, you got some giant organizations, these giant corporations, and those now being replaced by companies, exponential organizations. And these can be more powerful, scale quicker, and they can run with a very small staff. Instagram, for example, they were sold for $1 billion to Facebook with 13 employees that took out Kodak, who had 150,000 employees. So you can see here there's been a change. And if I look out a little bit, I can see the next phase coming in where, again, individuals, entrepreneurs start to harness AI, and especially robotics. A fully autonomous robot, you can have 3 or 4 of those working in your office. You can be a robo-entrepreneur, and you could take out any organization. So, obviously, AI integrated, etc. But I mean, you can just see how that work is going to get changed. So this whole thing of the future of work is a real thorny issue. And if we go over the issues that have been brought up by United Nations, etc., they're looking at a couple of stages here, a couple of issues. The first being looking for new work models. And we've seen that things have moved to temporary, part-time, independent has become very, very big, independent contractors. And it's made it very difficult for managers. When I say that, there are a lot of tools out now to help with this management of these remote teams. But they're very diverse and they're very dispersed. So this makes it difficult. It's like playing a sport on a field, having a field 4 times the size. I mean, you have to, if the ball's information, it gets much more difficult to pass around to people that much further spread out. And you start using different tactics. And they start to become a little bit more obtuse. So this is not an easy thing. You'll see that we're going into what we call the platform industries or economies, and they're very powerful, but again, they can work with a very small amount of staff. So you've got issues here as far as the type of model that you're going to use, and that's coming up. Gig workers, you'll see that Elon Musk, after the COVID, he actually wanted his staff, and he's insisted on them coming back in to the office. So he's already decided that if you're going to have very, very effective teams, they need to be in proximity, because it's not just the digital information and the time spent trying to get information across. And okay, you've got dashboards that provide a lot of information, but a lot happens in a closed environment, open workspaces where people can interact and overhear others' conversations, and these all help with bits of information that wouldn't otherwise be passed on. So it's difficult to supersede that kind of model in effectiveness, but nevertheless it is taking place. And it brings into issue contractual and legality problems, because now you have a dispersed workforce. It could be around the globe. How do you provide the kind of legitimate in legal aspects and protections for those type of employees? And if they're on contract basis, and how is this all going to unfold? And it's got to unfold very rapidly because it is accelerating. So they're looking for the social protection, which is the next issue, and they've got to have new regulations, and they are working to this end, but it's not going to be easy, because now you've got international boundaries, you've got different sets of laws, you've got different laws of different lands, and different levels of human resource regulations. So these different levels, for example, South Africa's got very strict human resource regulations. So employment regulations. This makes it very difficult to satisfy everyone. I'm not sure how they're going to do it. And you've got other things like mass migration, where you've got people coming into areas that aren't necessarily qualified for the digital economy. I mean, how are they going to be incorporated? So if you've got mass unemployment, it's a big problem. So transnational protection issues are going to be the same as that we've seen already a change in maritime. Just remember they've just recently coordinated to have a global maritime, open ocean, open seas regulatory environment. So suddenly there's no more no man's land on the sea. The maritime law now covers all the sea, not just your country's 200 kilometers off your shore, so to speak. The open oceans are now being regulated, have been regulated, under bodies that I don't necessarily have the power to do that, but they've done it anyway. So we're going to see how that unfolds. And the next issue they're talking about is reskilling. So you hear this a lot. It's a really big problem when you're talking to the youth and people and parents especially about what are they going to learn, what are their children going to be able to do, what work are they going to be able to do. So when you talk about reskilling, sure, short-term upskilling for specific market needs is fine. And there is this gap that we have at the moment where a lot of youngsters are getting good at coding and utilizing AI to help enhance their workplace with graphics, with video, with content, etc., etc. But these are, I don't see going for too far or for too long, because those are getting more and more effective and efficient on their own, and you're not going to need that independent person to help implement and manage it for companies and for other people. It's going to get easier, and it's going to be, somebody will just be able to talk to one of these apps and it'll do the rest for them. They're not going to need the support down the line. We've got formal education, and with formal education, the time it takes, the cost it takes, by the time people are formally educated in today's world, things have moved on so far, it's become redundant. So I'm in part of the self-education industry, and that self-education industry is the one that is growing exponentially, and this is creating the opportunity for the people to learn things very quickly, adopt things, and apply things. So that's the way to go at the moment. As I mentioned, I see this only going to the next decade. I'm not sure what will transpire then. The next issue they bring up is inclusive labor market. So we're looking at the social, environmental, and governance, but on the social side, inclusivity is important as far as the UN and places are concerned. And again, it brings up a whole myriad of problems. They're looking at, obviously, minority groups, and they're trying to get people to become, to work virtually, but to be inclusive. And I'm not sure that everyone's qualified to do that. It's going to be a problem. The next issue, job creation and entrepreneurship. I mean, value is increasing, these platforms and etc., but job creation itself is slow. It's very slow. So the take-up, the availability of jobs is not as great as it should be. And of course, the cost of HR is going up, and universal wage is a thing that's been bandied around. How it's going to be paid for, I'm not sure. The last one I want to chat about is digital design. The structures, the cultures of a company, when you work remotely, those start to fall away. And you've got project teams, and if you're going to be in a project team, you're going to have to be the best of the best to be invited to the best teams. Anyway, that's a bit to think about from now. Until next time, as usual, you can get more information on johnarthurharris.blogspot.com.